Path of Exile 2 just set the bar for all Ascendancy classes in the game with full details on the martial artist. Game directors Jonathan Rogers and Mark Roberts sat down for a lengthy interview with Darth Microtransaction and Gazzy TV, dropping a bunch of new info about this Path of Exile 2 patch and talking philosophical about the future of the game and what they plan on doing with it. There's also been some spicy post-patch note discourse. Grinding Gear Games also released some major news about the Gemling Legionnaire and how it has a new node that will literally change every skill gem in Path of Exile 2, hopefully for the better. And thankfully, the Chronomancer is getting 2 significant reworks or new nodes and some much needed quality of life changes that might even push me into playing it. And I decided my league starter by leaving it up to Destiny. And my community was not happy about it. Hey Exiles, I'm Talkative Try, and in this Path of Exile 2 news video, we are breaking down all the latest, new, and greatest information about PoE 2 0.5 Return of the Ancients. Timestamps are in the description below if you want to skip around, or if you just like to support the channel, watch all the way through, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you leave a comment too. Let's go. We're going to lead it off with the recap of the DM Gazzy interview, which a lot of was focused around the philosophy behind Path of Exile 2. I do highly recommend you give it a watch for those sections. I'll give a high-level overview of them and then give you all the brand new info that was dropped in this particular interview in case you don't find it elsewhere before launch. The developers are pretty aware that they have a wide variety of people playing the game, and it seems Jonathan Rogers is the one bringing everyone back down to earth when he plays the game and encounters some big issues, such as creating a bad build. There was a whole section in this interview where Mark was essentially roasting Jonathan for making a bad build, saying everything was in place except your support gems and your skill. And even though that was true, they still nerfed the density of the interludes, they lowered the difficulty of boss encounters in some ways, made some balance changes, because Jonathan won't be the only one encountering these issues in the game. A lot of average or below average players will as well, and they want to bring the experience of those players up to parity. They want to make sure those players enjoy the game just as much as the more experienced players like you and I. They also explicitly confirm balance is awry right now. Some things are way OP, a lot of stuff has to be brought up to parity, and between now and launch, meaning the next 6 or 7 months, about 2/3 of the development effort for Path of Exile 2 are going to go to balancing the game, and we will see at least one major reset with major balance being done between now and 1.0 in December or November. Speaking about 1.0 briefly, we also learned that the Trial of the Ancients, the third way to ascend, is unlikely to be in 1.0. Additionally, there are no real big performance changes coming in 0.5 and nothing really on the horizon. They are always just working to improve stability and frame rate, and right now they're actually mostly working on crashes. They actually are sending a PC to NVIDIA to diagnose a particular unfortunate crash. And the big reason that Act 5 and 6 are being held for 1.0 is to ensure this expansion and the leaving of early access feels like a much larger release and is going to bring back a lot of the people who are primarily interested in the campaign and not in the endgame. They really want to make sure this is a meaty launch. Overall, this conversation in terms of the philosophy of the game was one of the most candid interviews from both Mark and Jonathan. It did help, I presume, that Jonathan was literally, I assume, sipping wine from a wine glass around 9:30 a.m. on a Sunday in New Zealand, which was just hilarious. And Mark was chilling in his home office. He seemed very comfortable. You know, they were just really chilling with the boys. They were dropping F-bombs, drinking alcohol, and just, you know, yapping. It just felt like a really chill chat, and DM and Gazzy did a great job letting the developers just linger on some of these more philosophical questions that, like I said, if you want the full context, go watch the full interview. Now, time for the new info drops from it. The extra time before the announcement and release has really helped with polish for the league. There were so many moving parts that sometimes they forgot what was even in the release, and there are a bunch of things not in the patch notes that are still coming out with the release. so you better watch out for those. They've been trimming down the time that it's taken to max out your Atlas tree and your league trees. At first, it was between 25 and 30 maps at first to max out a league tree, but since the average user takes an extremely long amount of time to do that, now you can kill the Pinnacle boss to instantly get 6 points over and over, or you can just complete all the individual maps in the league's primary home base zone to get all your Atlas tree points. They didn't want to make it too grindy to get maxed out, and they were getting feedback from their own developers who are great players that it was getting along those lines. This is really interesting to hear. I can't wait to actually get into the game and see how long it's gonna take to get into that state, because we got challenges, we have maxing out the Atlas tree, and then we have completing all the quests. What are we gonna do first? I assume it's the quests and then maxing out all the Atlas trees, and how long will that take, and how many people will want to go and then start farming after that? We'll just have to see. Especially since all of this progress is shared across your characters in a league. They once again stress that there are lots of campaign changes this league, especially in Act 3. An example that Jonathan dropped was, now after killing Viper Napuatsi, there's not more extra city to traverse and potentially get lost in. You just go right into the next zone, Exile. I love this. I'm glad to see it. That's a good change to Act 3. They also realized in recent testing, in particular, it was Jonathan on a wolf build, that increasing health on a boss will also increase the poise threshold, which will hurt builds relying on freezing and stunning a boss to get all their damage. So not only do you have the extra hit points, but you also have it being more difficult to actually get them into this prime state and deal damage. So they've changed the way that this poise threshold scales with health to allow those builds to feel better in the game, meaning high health targets should be easier to stun or freeze than before. They will likely be adding a sound effect for breaking energy shield and seeing Runic ward begin to recharge. I like more visual tells on the screen. Big fan of all the effects that appear on your screen when you're shocked or bleeding and the like. Visual feedback is good. They also confirmed that Tame Beast is now a level 7 skill gem, which means you should be able to access it right around the time that you ascend in Act 2 instead of halfway through Act 3 or so. This is great because that means people who go down the path of the Spirit Walker right away will be able to go back and get a boss from earlier in Act 2 or back to Act 1. Go grab that crow bell. They also confirmed that expedition shops are gone completely alongside the Recombinator, and it is very unlikely that any of them will return. Jonathan and Mark both seem to be in agreement with me that the system was just way too complex and was way too hard to fine-tune, and they're very confident that the systems that are being placed into the game now will allow for just as much depth in terms of crafting without the added complexity. I wish they had that philosophy with socketables and the crafting bench. They also confirmed they upped the divine drop rate solely because the ridiculous number of divine orbs dropping from the Val Temple in 0.4. They were afraid that players would notice the lack of divine orb drops, and because many players do play the game in terms of divs per hour, they would feel bad or potentially quit the game. Honestly, I understand where they're coming from, but it was shocking to hear that they made this change because people were going to just get less tinks on the ground. I mean, this is going to change the way that people farm and trade and how valuable the orb is, and it's all because of exploits of intended use of game mechanics in 0.4. I guess we'll see how it feels, but I had a bad taste in my mouth when I heard them say that. Even though they were all laughing about it as though it was a big joke. I get it. They noted that the new Breach amulets that have the free auras and buffs will be chase items and split into 3 tiers, with each tier granting a higher spirit amount buff. They also doubled down on the fact that there are no Ubers in the game. There's the quest version of a Pinnacle boss and the farmable version of a Pinnacle boss, but there are ways to edit farmable Pinnacles via Atlas trees and Atlas Masters. They were really shady about this one, but Mark did seem to imply that there were some pretty cool ways to edit bosses, so I'm optimistic that we can make some pretty tough ones. And now we need to take a look at the best Ascendancy class in all of Path of Exile 2, the Martial Artist, because Grinding Gear Games recently dropped the tell-all for this new Monk Ascendancy, and I have to say, everybody, this one sets the bar for what Ascendancy classes can do in Path of Exile 2. Not only is it flavorful, not only is it exciting, but it is also powerful. It fires on all cylinders. All the points on the Ascendancy class are thematic, they are strong, they look to be impactful. It seriously looks like if you are playing a monk and playing the Martial Artist Ascendancy, every time you are ready to ascend, you want to rush to the trial. That usually is not the case in Path of Exile 2, so I am absolutely pumped to see something like this be dropped in the game, and I hope that Grinding Gear Games goes back to other Ascendancy classes and brings them to this level. In particular, I mean, they just have a slew of new nodes. They have this bell node where you have the bells appearing around you and you can use them to create the shock waves and give yourself power charges and bring up your wind blasts and the like. And then you have the bell that always appears on your back and is constantly causing shockwaves to emanate off you every time you crit. This is just so sick. It's AoE, it's boss damage, so many different ways you can build this. And then you have the channeling monk, which I thought was going to be utter garbage. And hey, you know, it might be at the end of the day, but it looks absolutely sick. This is way better than just standing still, by the way. Being able to walk around is awesome. And when you use power charges on this, you can generate a ton of clones. Do you see how many clones that is? Do you see how fast that guy's dying? Rip the vision, by the way. You can also do this with shape shifting. As you can see here, we have a wolf taking a knee. And then you have the Runic Meridians, which you've seen before. You basically get 5 extra rune slots. However, they do not scale with local modifiers. So iron runes, for example, are not helping bring up your body armor with these. You'll probably be using them with the cool new runes that are added to the game, or maybe just upping your resistances. We're going to skip right by that. There's also Martial Adept, which is really sinking your teeth into generating combo, which is, you know, kind of an old thing. I think the best part that they revealed here is really this Way of the Mountain line, which is a huge amount of defenses, and it gives you this carapace on your character. Look at this. Look at this rocky shout that's on your character's exterior. It gives you more damage, and it gives you less damage taken, and 50% more stun threshold. This is a tremendous amount of tank on your character. Do you see what I mean? Every single node gives you something offensive mixed with something defensive, something massively offensive, something massively defensive, something that can just be both, such as this Fists of Stone. They gave a few more examples of how Fists of Stone changes your glove slot, which, by the way, it works on all gloves, including uniques. People who are arguing against me, come on, guys, I knew what I was talking about. And some of the examples they gave were truly ridiculous. I'm wondering what Face Breakers is going to do. I think it's going to allow you to scale dexterity and maybe let you use like spear skills as unarmed. I mean, the examples they give here as we're scrolling through are redonkulous. Like this, Hand of Wisdom in action becomes a cold damage glove. The ones right here, also wild. Thunder Fist, plus 1.02 to unarmed melee crit strike chance. A new skill on the actual pair of fists. And then if we just skip ahead to this section right here, guys, look at this. Horror Palm. Look how much defenses it's giving you. This is essentially a body armor in your glove slot that's also giving you Onslaught. Attacks gain 19% of damage as extra cold and more crit chance, almost 3% more crit chance, and you're still wearing your body armor. I gotta say, like, think about the Smith of Kitava. This one node, Fists of Stone, 2 points on your Ascendancy class, is giving you a whole extra body armor. And the Smith of Kitava literally has their body armor disabled, and they have to spend 8 points to bring it up to parity with this pair of gloves. I'm telling you, Martial Artist is going to be one of the most played, most fun, coolest, most thematic Ascendancies of all time. And I don't think it will be close, even though we are getting some other sick Ascendancies in this particular update. Let me know in the comments, are you as pumped as I am for the martial artist? I didn't think I was going to be until this showcase, but looking at the potential, seeing how everything just perfectly melds together, I cannot help but be pumped for this particular class. And speaking on that, I briefly have to just follow up on a little bit of post-patch note discourse that I saw pop up in my comments section, Discord, Twitter, other videos. People saying that there weren't enough changes in the game, not enough new stuff added into the game, that the meta is just going to change. And you know what I have to say to you guys? I'm going to be a little bit harsh here. Stop being meta slaves. Stop listening to just what the top builders are doing and following them blindly. Look at what looks fun to you, what looks interesting to you, or just try to build something for yourself, and you might realize you're going to have a lot more fun doing that than just following a build guide on a build site or in a program like you're going down a checklist. The game opens up so much more wide if you do this, and I get it. Some of you don't have enough time, so you go ahead and you follow a build guide. You don't want to mess up, you don't want to go the wrong way, you don't want to waste currency. That makes sense. But if any of you are also saying, and the game is not changing, and Twister is going to just be busted, and you have no room to complain. There are so many new things, so many knowns already. The meta is going to drastically shift. And then that's not even counting all the unknowns in this patch. All the new unique items, the Kalguran skills, the lineage support gems, all the ruins, the new challenges that we're going to face. The encounters might call for different types of builds as well. We'll just have to see. I cannot believe the amount of just whining babies I saw complaining about this patch. It's ridiculous. Even though this wasn't pitched as a big balance patch because they put so much into the end game, there's still a ridiculous amount of customization unfolding in this patch in terms of new stuff and old stuff that has been changed. I can't believe some people are not pumped for it. I just can't. It's ridiculous. I'm excited. I had to respond to that discourse. Let's now talk about something new and sweet. I, of course, am talking about the Gemling Legionnaire, which Grinding Gear Games just did something absolutely absurd on there, and they are creating so much more work for themselves just because they thought it would be cool and they thought players would love it. They added a brand new node to the Gemling Legionnaire called Advanced Thaumaturgy, which adds an additional quality effect to every single skill gem in the game. For Fireball, it makes it have a chance to fire up to 8 additional projectiles in a circle. This is a quality effect that they're adding from just the Gemling Legionnaire. It's one Ascendancy class, one node, and they're doing this for every single skill. Can you guys believe the amount of work this is? And they could have just been like, we're going to add, 0 to 1% more damage or increased damage to the Gemling Legionnaire from these additional quality. And they instead, apparently, decided to make it very, very thematic. I cannot wait to see what unfolds with all the different additional quality effects. This could be defining for some builds. I saw someone say, oh, maybe with rapid fire, it'll get rid of the heat mechanic. I know that would make one of my friends, my brother-in-law, very, very happy. But there are some crazy possibilities in store, and we only know two of over 200. That's all they shared. And they also added this new node, which honestly, guys, I'm going to bring down the hype levels a little bit. It's called Essence or Virtuous Barrier. It looks a little crap, or it's Essence of Virtue. It looks a little crap. It's supposed to be defensive, but it really looks like it's only useful in boss fights because every time you get hit, it gets chipped down. And even the additional effects, look on the left-hand side of your screen, they don't seem all that good. So I reckon this will get buffed, or it's really just not going to be used on the Gemling Legionnaire. But I guarantee 100% of Gemling Legionnaires are going to be using Advanced Thaumaturgy because this node is absolutely ridiculous. And then zooming ahead in time, there's also another revamped Ascendancy, and that is the Chronomancer for the Sorceress. She's getting a reworked node and a brand new node and some quality of life additions that are pretty cool. This is the brand new node right here, phased form. It makes you just take 30% less damage flat, which is kind of wild. And then 4 seconds after being damaged by an enemy hit, you will take the damage equal to 30% of that hit's damage. However, you can use Temporal Rift to get rid of all that damage and you just won't take it. Additionally, the damage reduction applies to all damage, while the 30% of damage that you then take only applies to damage from hits. So that means you will just take 30% less damage from these ground effects as they've been shown here. That's pretty sick for those of us who constantly stand on ground effects. And then up next is Inevitability. This is the node that has been reworked. It looks a lot cooler. I understand it now. It's basically a curse that is giving you 50% more damage as long as you use it accurately. It scales really well on bosses. On packs, you have to cast it on the pack and then do your damage. And honestly, I think if you just use your damage skill, by the time you cast it and use your damage skill, you could have just used your damage skill to kill the pack. So it's kind of useless on those, but it seems really good and a really offensive node for bosses in particular. And then the Chrono got a few more quality of life additions so that it can use its time stopping abilities with just 4 points of investment instead of needing all 8. So with all this wicked new stuff introduced to Path of Exile 2 these past just literally 3 days, what could I be league starting? Well, I actually think I'm going to play multiple builds this Path of Exile 2 league start. I'd love to know what you are league starting. If you know, let me know in the comments below. But I'd like to share my league starter with all of you and how I determined it right now. So if I'm supposed to play Monk on league start, then I'm about to see Monk. All right. I will respect the results of this wheel spin. 3, 2, 1. I didn't hear the celebration. Oh, there it is. I do not know what it is. Okay. I'm gonna count down. And I'm gonna look at chat first. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 3, 2, 1. Did I just skip 4? I did skip 4. 3, 2, 1. Oh! Let's go! Let's go! I knew it! There we go! Ah, it's fate. It was fate. What did I tell you guys? I'm a proponent of destiny. If it was to be so, it will be so. And what do we have? Martial artist bells, baby. Oh, league start saved. It wasn't rigged. It wasn't rigged. Fate of the Val, indeed. Oh.